it is easy to play offense in the information space. And playing defense, as this company is trying to do, and so many others are trying to do, is much more harder. It's much harder. It's much more complicated. And it is fraught because you can also run the risk of putting your own set of biases or your institution's own biases on top of the analysis very quickly and even unwittingly. And so you have to try and take that out. The reason I'm excited about trying to help you all is you're trying to do this in a dispassionate way. It is not Democrat, it is not liberal, it is not conservative. It is about how do we get to the kernels that we can identify. And you start right with the wheat. You take out things that are known disinformation, things that are, you can tell, are intentional, inaccurate, do not reflect reality, and identify them, pull them aside, and then you have to sort what remains, right? You have to do this in a way that moves at the speed of our adversaries. The technical piece of this, the one that you're engaged in, is really easy compared to those overlays of the institutional and political overlays that surround this. You got people screaming that you're using these tools in a way to suppress information. Mm-hmm. That is, if they don't believe that you are truly identifying a bot or you're truly identifying disinformation, they're going to say that you're flagging things for the purpose of suppressing them. And institutional credibility is very low in these places today, so it will take, in the end, private actor companies with transparent systems that everybody can stare at and understand what sits behind it to ultimately begin to solve how is it that you quickly identify disinformation across a broad range of information communication technologies.
On a scale from 1 to 10, how much do you see this problem of this information campaign to be heavy in playing a role in what we would like to call shaping international relations between countries?
Yeah, it's staggering and increasing.
So 11 out of 10.
11 out of 10 and headed to 15.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Big nation state actors, some very capable non-nation state actors as well, intentionally trying to shape, I always go back and forth, to shape the information space. It's not a perfect description, but intentionally trying to shape the information space in a way that benefits what it is they have as their objective. And they're really good, and they're really deep, and they're really fast, and they don't have 7 levels of review process and a signature required by a secretary. The Chinese, by the way, the Chinese Communist Party presents the most capable tool set. That is, they have the deepest understanding of how to use this. The Russians are, of course, also very good. The Iranians and MOIS, good but narrow. And now the three of them working together, or at least working in overlapping spaces, presents a real risk for the West. The people who believe, when I think of the West, the people who believe in the rule of law and property rights. This is a big challenge. So think about this disinformation effort. It's not just a matter of what you're going to do, and you're going to go find it. It's online, and we found it. There was 17 bad actors, 97,000 bots. We got the bot farm. Great. They are literally working every facet of the American information ecosystem somehow, some way. There are more Chinese operators inside the country than there are FBI agents. Just to give you a perspective of the task that Chris Wray has in front of him. When I say operators, I use that word very intentionally. They're not farm-trained CIA officers. They are not all highly schooled agents, but they are working on behalf of a mission as directed by senior leadership of a Marxist-Leninist entity who wants to undermine our republic. But when I stare at these information set problems, you realize that the problem's only going to get more complicated, and that frankly most of the really important stuff will happen outside of formal government channels, and that the government's going to need enormous help identifying IFF, right, and identifying the real stuff versus the stuff that's being driven by someone who's shaping it. Those solutions are almost certainly going to be, in the first instance, come from private sector actors who have capital to deploy and can actually create systems that deliver solutions for the government and then deliver them for private entities as well. You have to take it seriously, But it's, you can imagine, it's among a dozen priorities, right? There's just so many things that they've got to do well. And so on any given day, any set of senior leaders in those entities, like, they're not thinking about disinformation very much on any given day. So hopefully they've allocated the resources and built teams that are actually focused on. We were literally 20 years behind in trying to figure out how to use what I call traditional open source analytic efforts.
Yep.
That is just to go be able to process, store, collect, prioritize, analyze data sets. I would go see the folks out in Silicon Valley and realize that we were just mere children. And you go back and these people thought they were hot shots, and then you'd show them what was being done in outside of the government, and you'd realize you're going to have to contract this. Right? There's no way. We will either have the resources and often the talent. It's not to denigrate anybody who's working at the CIA, but these are, when you look at the best quantum companies in the world and the best AI companies in the world, they really only have one significant advantage, maybe two. They might have more capital than someone else, but in the end, the capital will flow to where the talent is. And so this is really a fight, global fight for talent, for the best, brightest, most innovative, the hardest working talent in the world. And the government will always have some of those, but the bulk of those folks are going to sit outside of NSA or outside of GCHQ in Britain. They're going to sit someplace else. Yeah. And so the USG just needs to buy it, fee for service. I mean, everything turns on what you're teaching kids in 5th grade. In the end, or say it differently, different nations have different systems. By the time someone's 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, it depends what you're teaching them. If you're teaching them crap, then there's no hope. I think we'll end up getting it right, but there's a long road to get to that place, and it is not easy. And if you said, "What's the answer?" I don't have a magic wand on how to do that. But I can tell you that what we're doing today is missing the mark. And it's when I joked you, I wasn't kidding. The Chinese are showing up at PTA meetings, showing up with a check for $10,000 saying, "Yeah, here's the money for a new slide, new swing set, right? New library, whatever it may be." Anybody think they give a damn about that swing set and the physical fitness of the children in America? They're making friends and they're influencing, and they go for the moment, for whatever moment that may be. And that we have to just get serious about it and decide, no, we're not going to let that happen. And when we do, collectively in the world, when we get that right, magic will follow from it. But it's a big swing. The Chinese Communist Party knows this too. They know it perhaps even better than I do. They know that the way to take down this republic is not with a nuclear weapon. It is not with a hypersonic. It is literally telling our kids on TikTok, America sucks. Or wherever, however it is. Whatever country. Whatever that is. And if you do that for long enough, then these institutions won't be trusted, whether it's the FBI or the evil people at the CIA, whatever it is, right? When those institutions are no longer reliably institutions that the American people largely accept, or in any nation, then you really can't, there's not much foundation upon which to run a sound information management system that says, hey, here's how we can tell you zeros and ones, true from false, information against disinformation. And so there's nothing that can be done but to make sure that people of character do their level best to, as transparently as they can, communicate about why it is these institutions matter and why it is having trusted people leading these institutions is something that the people of the country will follow. And if we get that piece right, then you can do disinformation in a way and people will say, yep, there it is, and I believe them, that was false, this is true. In the end, it doesn't really matter if you ferret out disinformation if no one believes you. In the end, you can show up with your kick-ass report and look what I did and I found all these bad actors. And if everybody says you're just a tool of something or someone and the credibility doesn't exist, it doesn't really matter how good your product was, because it won't shape decision-making, right? It won't shape outcomes. It won't shape... And the challenge that we face in many places, not just the United States, is the absence of confidence in the historic institutions that were the pillars of our republic. I think it's hopeless to think that a regulatory solution will solve this. Who's going to be faster, the regulator or the regulatee? Yeah, and that would be the lesson that I think over time companies like Cyabra can help with, right? Like, it's not right.
I will say that.
But this last thing is,
please.
You have to create the brand. You have to create the brand that is the good housekeeping seal for information. You have to do that. By the way, there'll be people that do this in the sports betting space, and there'll be people that do, right. And so it won't be. Nobody's going to create a global brand for information truth seeking. It's just not plausible. But there's almost no chance that a regulatory solution does this. I'll give you the only regulatory piece that does make some sense, and it's wholly imperfect, to be sure. And I will deny I said this, but the plaintiff's bar has a shot of pulling this off. Right? Unleash them to go sue people that engage in misinformation and collect damages for it. It's not a very conservative idea. I could argue it is. You could argue about property rights and information, but in any event, and by the way, I worked in this town as a white-collar criminal defense guy. I despise the plaintiff's bar. Any plaintiff's lawyers out there, I love you in particular. But the bar itself, right, are mostly bottom-fishing evil people. But it is also true that they have the capacity to take people who were damaged by misinformation and properly vet it through the system and go clean it up and impose real costs on people who engage in disinformation. We don't think about it. So this is sort of around the Section 230 discussion, but it's different and broader than that. It really flows more from the tradition of defamation and the like, and how you do that, and how you manage information and damages. We could open that spigot up in ways that probably creates more litigation, and that's bad, but might contain some of the worst actors. It's hard to do globally. So if the bad actor is sitting in Pyongyang, doesn't really matter if you serve them with process in Denver, but it's a tool. From
our very small and humble experience, that as a company, part of the fight. At the end of the day, I absolutely agree with you. I mean, the sheer fact that you only have the regulatory landscape won't be enough to solve the problem. When we saw the biggest solutions and the biggest outcomes, or at least you can say the most efficient ones, they were the ones that combined sort of the governmental effort combined with the education space coming out of it as well. That was a very big piece of the final outcome when we were talking to these social media platforms, and you wanted to pound on them and you wanted to sort of force their hand to do something about something, and then you had to combine that with the data or the technology. And we figured out over the last 6 years since we created the company that the only way for us as in the ones who are trying to fight this fight as the good guys, objectively speaking, it has to be the three of them combined. If there's one piece of the puzzle missing, I think that we'll find ourselves at the same place. That's what we found.